In a quiet village, surrounded by rolling hills and golden sunlight, there lived a man whose wisdom rippled through generations. He wasn't famous, nor did he seek attention, but he carried something within an ancient knowledge passed down not through textbooks, but through lived experience. Every morning, as the dew kissed the earth, he reached for something small yet powerful. It was neither medicine nor magic. It was simple, natural, forgotten by many, but cherished by those who knew. He believed that nature never makes mistakes, and within its simplest gifts, it hides its greatest treasures. Over decades, he had learned to listen not just to doctors, but to his own body. He noticed changes small at first, then louder, signals that something inside was asking for help. And the help, as always, came from the earth. He would sit beneath the old fig tree with a wooden bowl in hand. The contents, modest, but there was power in those colors, in that texture, in the richness that only the earth could create. He didn't rush. He consumed with intention, with patience, and in return, his body thanked him, not overnight, but slowly, steadily, like a river smoothing a stone. What he consumed was not new. Ancient civilizations had praised it. Healers had used it before hospitals existed. But somewhere along the way, people forgot. Distracted by convenience and chemicals, they overlooked what was growing quietly. In their gardens, orchards, and markets, science, decades behind tradition, finally began to catch up. Researchers ran tests. They studied effects. And one by one, the truths once considered old wives' tales began to gain respect in white coat circles. The numbers didn't lie. The results spoke clearly. The body responded, inflammation lowered, discomfort faded, and a sense of relief returned to those who had been living in quiet frustration. And yet, very few people knew. He smiled at that thought, not because he wanted to keep the secret, but because he knew it was never really a secret. It was just overlooked. The days went on, seasons changed. His routine remained, and one by one, people began to ask. They noticed the calm in his face, the lightness in his step, the ease with which he navigated what others struggled through. Was it genetics? Was it luck? He would simply hand them a piece, just a bite, and say, "Let nature remember you." Those who listened saw change. Not dramatic, not theatrical, but real. They felt comfort return. They rested better, moved easier, laughed without worry, their minds clearer, their nights quieter. Doctors scratched their heads. "It's unusual," they'd say, "but whatever you're doing, keep doing it." And so it spread, quietly, respectfully, from village to town, from story to study, from doubt to data. People began to care, again, not just about what pills to take, but about what they fed themselves daily. They began to rediscover the forgotten rules of balance and nourishment. They realized the body doesn't age in rebellion. It ages in response. It's not the years, it's the choices. And some choices are far more powerful than we're told. He didn't need alarms to wake up. His mornings started with instinct, not urgency. The kind of peace that only comes when the body isn't fighting itself. Outside, the wind danced softly through olive trees, and the sky stretched like a canvas brushed with golden warmth. He moved with grace, not the kind taught in gyms, but the kind earned through consistencies, small habits repeated with faith, a warm cup, a slow breath, and always, always, that one thing placed gently on his plate. It was part of his ritual, like prayer, like sunrise. He used to ignore the signs until the signs grew louder. Discomfort, disturbed sleep, an uneasy rhythm that disrupted everything else. He tried the usual paths. Pills lined the cabinet. Promises made by commercials faded quickly into side effects and silence. But nothing changed till he went back to the source. What he found wasn't wrapped in plastic or prescribed in a hurry. It had been there all along, waiting, modest in appearance, humble in size, yet mighty in its effect. With it came balance, a calming from within, as if something tight had finally loosened. He didn't tell many people at first, not because he wanted to keep it a secret, but because words often fall short of experience. It's hard to explain peace to someone who's never had to fight for it. But others began to notice. Friends from his walking group, who once joked about his bathroom breaks, now asked him what changed. Neighbors, seeing him out gardening without groans or pauses, began to wonder. His sons, grown men now, saw the quiet energy return to their father's eyes. He never sold them answers. He simply shared what he did, like his grandfather once did for him. They laughed at first. It seemed too simple, too natural. But curiosity led to trial, and trial led to understanding. The effects were subtle but unmistakable. Rest returned, ease followed, moods lifted, and so began the quiet ripple of transformation. He believed the body always speaks. The trouble is most people stop listening. They ignore the whispers until they become roars. He had done the same once, but not anymore. Every bite, every breath, every moment had become sacred. And in that sacred space, healing happened, not in dramatic explosions, but in gentle corrections. He taught his grandchildren to not with lectures, but with lifestyle. They'd help him prepare breakfast, their tiny fingers mimicking his hands as he washed and sliced and arranged things with purpose. He'd smile as they asked questions. "Why do you eat this every day?" they'd say. He'd kneel down to their level, look them in the eye and say, "Because it listens to me, and I listen to it." They didn't understand it fully, not yet, but one day they would. And when they did, they'd remember. His kitchen became a classroom, a quiet rebellion against fast fixes and forgotten roots. Jars filled with natural treasures, leaves dried with care, colors that reflected the seasons and the soil. This wasn't just food, it was medicine that didn't call itself medicine. He didn't need charts or scans to know he was improving. His sleep deepened, his steps quickened. He could go hours without interruption, and more than anything he felt calm, inside where the storm once brewed. His doctor noticed too. Routine checkups turned into curious questions. "What are you doing differently?" the doctor asked. He didn't give a speech. He just smiled, nodded gently, and said, "I remembered something I once forgot." The doctor scribbled notes, ran tests again. Numbers that once raised eyebrows now told a different story. "Keep doing what you're doing," he said. "It's working." And so he did. Not out of fear, but out of respect for the body, for the earth, for time itself. He had learned that age doesn't have to equal decline, that small, consistent choices are more powerful than dramatic, temporary fixes. And at the center of it all was that one item, the one he always had with him, always gave to guests, always carried in his small cloth bag like a sacred charm. He never claimed it cured anything. That wasn't his language. But he did say, it changed things. It softened what was hard, lightened what was heavy, And most of all, it gave back something he thought he had lost: control over his own health. The simplicity of it puzzled some. "That's it?" they'd ask. But simplicity is often the highest form of wisdom. He watched as others followed. Some laughed, others listened. But those who stayed long enough to try began to tell their own stories. Late nights became restful again. Long drives no longer required constant stops. Their confidence returned not from vanity, but from freedom. He had no website, no brand, just a story and a truth that lived in his daily life. And maybe that's why it worked. Not because it was trendy, but because it was true.